My grandfather left his 1967 Mustang to whoever could fix it. My siblings hired mechanics. I didn't. Grandpa Vincent was a legend in the car community. His 1967 Shelby GT 500 wasn't just any Mustang. It was one of only 2,048 ever made, with the original 428 Cobra jet engine. Experts valued it between $350,000 and $450,000. He'd spent 40 years making it perfect. Every car show, people would gather around that white beauty with blue racing stripes and just stare. When he died last month, my 3 siblings barely showed up to the funeral. They were too busy with their fancy careers. My older brother Marcus ran a hedge fund in Boston. My sister Amber closed million-dollar real estate deals in Miami. My younger brother Tyler had his tech startup. I worked at Murphy's Auto Repair, still wearing my work clothes with oil stains. The lawyer's office felt too small for all our egos. Your grandfather left very specific instructions, he said. The Mustang, along with his house and savings, goes to whichever grandchild can restore it to working condition within 30 days. Marcus laughed. Restore it? That car's already perfect. 3 days before his death, your grandfather deliberately took apart major pieces of the engine. He left it in pieces. The silence was heavy. Marcus was already on his phone. I'm calling Morrison's Classic Car Restoration. They're the best in the state. Amber nodded. I know a guy who specializes in Shelbys. He's expensive but worth it. Tyler was texting. My business partner's dad owns a shop. He'll help. I just stared at the photos of the scattered parts, remembering Saturday mornings in that garage. Grandpa showing me how to listen to an engine, how to feel when something was right. We all got keys to the garage. The competition started immediately. The first week, Marcus's mechanics showed up in a van. 3 guys in matching uniforms. I was there working on sorting parts when they arrived. They took photos of everything, measurements. Then they left without touching anything. Weird, but I figured they were planning their approach. I started working nights after my shifts at Murphy's. Grandpa had taught me to restore engines piece by piece. Trust your hands, he'd say. The metal talks if you listen. I began with the basics, cleaning parts, checking for damage, taking my time, but things kept moving. I'd organize the engine components one way, come back the next day, and they'd be rearranged. At first I thought I was misremembering. Then I started taking photos before I left each night. Someone was definitely moving things. Pieces I'd set aside would be in different spots. Small parts would disappear, then reappear days later in wrong locations. The mechanics kept coming, different ones each time. They'd spend hours in the garage, but I never saw them actually working, just looking, talking in low voices, taking more photos. When I asked Marcus what his team was doing, he said they were developing a restoration strategy. 2 weeks in, I noticed something stranger. Custom parts started appearing, components that weren't original, a modified carburetor, performance headers that didn't match the 1967 specs. These weren't restoration parts, they were upgrades. I took photos and compared them to Grandpa's original documentation. None of this matched. I confronted Amber about it. She said her guy was just examining all options, but the way she said it felt wrong, like she was hiding something. Tyler's mechanics showed up next. They brought equipment I'd never seen before. Diagnostic computers, modern tools. They spent 3 hours measuring the engine bay. When I asked what they were doing, they said analyzing structural integrity. That made no sense for a restoration. I started staying later, watching. One night I hid when I heard someone coming. It was Marcus and one of his mechanics. They were installing something under the hood, something electronic, something that definitely wasn't part of a 1967 Mustang. I filmed it on my phone. The next day, all 3 siblings showed up together. That had never happened before. They went into the garage without me and locked the door. I waited outside for 2 hours. When they came out, they wouldn't look at me. That night, I broke into the garage. I needed to see what they'd done. The engine was completely different from how I'd left it. Parts were in the wrong places. New components were installed. The whole thing looked wrong. Then I found the paperwork hidden under the workbench, and that's when I realized what my siblings had actually been planning this entire time. The rest of the story is on my channel or linked below. The paperwork is spread across the workbench, illuminated by my phone's flashlight. My hands tremble as I flip through the pages, each one more damning than the last. These aren't restoration plans. They're forgery documents. Authentic 1967 Shelby GT 500 certification package reads the header on one page. Below it, detailed instructions for artificially aging reproduction parts to pass as original. Another page shows schematics for a modern fuel-injected crate engine disguised to look like the original 428 Cobra jet. There are even contact details for someone named Decker who specializes in vintage documentation recreation. These bastards aren't restoring Grandpa's car, they're faking it. I take photos of everything with shaking hands. Page after page reveals their true intentions. One document outlines auction houses specializing in classic Shelbys, with projected sale prices and commission rates. Another shows a 3-way split of proceeds after the sale, with a timeline showing the car being listed just 2 weeks after the 30-day restoration deadline. My siblings never cared about Grandpa's legacy. This was always about the money. I'm photographing a particularly damning email from Marcus about making sure the VIN plates match the forgeries when I hear a car door slam outside. Quickly, I replace everything exactly as I found it and slip out the back door of the garage, ducking behind Grandpa's old tool shed just as Tyler's BMW pulls up. The next morning, I head straight to Murphy's Auto Repair, arriving an hour before my shift. My boss, Jim Murphy, is already there, coffee in hand, looking over invoices. "You're early," he says, eyebrows raised. "I need your help," I tell him, pulling out my phone and showing him the photos. My siblings are cheating. Jim's expression darkens as he swipes through the evidence. Modern crate engine disguised as vintage, reproduction parts artificially aged. Jesus, kid, they're not even trying to do what your grandfather wanted. Can you help me prove they're not using original parts? You're respected in the community. People will listen to you. He nods slowly. I've been working on classics for 30 years. I can spot a fake Shelby part from across the room, but we need to be smart about this. That afternoon, I return to Grandpa's house, this time heading for his study instead of the garage. My siblings are all at their respective restoration sites, giving me time to search. I'm looking for something specific. Grandpa's restoration journal. He documented everything about that car, every part, every modification, every detail of its history. After an hour of searching through filing cabinets and bookshelves, I find it hidden behind a row of car magazines. A thick, leather-bound book, the cover worn from decades of handling. Inside, in Grandpa's meticulous handwriting, is the complete history of his beloved Shelby. I flipped to the last entry, dated just a week before he died. The Shelby isn't just a car, it's my legacy. I've taught one of my grandchildren everything I know about restoration. The patience, the respect for history, the importance of authenticity. The others see only dollar signs. This final test will reveal who truly understands what I've tried to teach all these years. My throat tightens. He knew exactly what they would do. The journal contains detailed specifications for every component of the original engine, including serial numbers for the major parts. There are photos, diagrams, and notes about the quirks and peculiarities unique to this specific car. This is the authentication Bible I need. As I'm about to leave, I notice something odd. The basement door is ajar, with fresh scuff marks on the floor leading to it. Grandpa rarely went down there. It was mostly storage and his old workbench from before he built a separate garage. The basement lights flicker on, revealing the usual clutter of decades of accumulated tools and boxes. But something's different. The large workbench against the far wall has been moved slightly, its corner no longer aligned with the crack in the concrete floor that I remember from childhood visits. I push the heavy bench aside, revealing a small trapdoor built into the floor. Inside is a wooden crate, padlocked shut. Using the key I find taped to the underside of the workbench, I open it to discover the final pieces of the original 428 Cobra jet engine, the carburetor, distributor, and other key components that would be impossible to replicate convincingly. Grandpa Vincent, you clever old man. I carefully photograph each part, documenting serial numbers and unique markings, then return everything exactly as I found it. As I'm closing the basement door, my phone buzzes with a text from Marcus. Meeting with the lawyer tomorrow at 2 p.m. Checking progress on restorations. Be there. Perfect timing. I have less than 24 hours to prepare my case. My siblings think they're so clever with their fancy mechanics and forgery experts, but they've forgotten one crucial detail. I'm the only one who truly knew Grandpa and what he wanted for his beloved Mustang. I call Jim Murphy as I drive away from the house. I found it. I tell him, Grandpa's complete restoration journal and the original engine parts they don't know about. We can prove they're cheating. Good, Jim says, because I just heard from my contact at Morrison's Classic Car Restoration. Your brother Marcus has them working around the clock to finish before the deadline. They're rushing the job, cutting corners. It's going to look good enough to fool the lawyer, but it's all smoke and mirrors. Then we better make sure the truth comes out, I say, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Before they destroy everything Grandpa Vincent stood for, I call an emergency meeting at a diner halfway between our restoration sites, neutral ground. I arrive early, sliding into a corner booth with a clear view of the door, my laptop and Grandpa's journal tucked safely in my backpack. When my siblings walk in together, their synchronized arrival tells me they've already been talking. This better be important, Marcus says, checking his Rolex. I've got mechanics on the clock. Oh, it's important, I reply, opening my laptop and turning it toward them. Want to explain these? Their faces change as I scroll through the photos, the forgery documents, the fake certification plans, the modern engine schematics disguised as vintage. Tyler's jaw tightens while Amber's eyes dart nervously to Marcus. Where did you get those? Marcus finally asks, his voice eerily calm. Does it matter? I know what you're doing. This isn't restoration, it's fraud. Marcus leans back, studying me with new interest. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. Look, Amber says, sliding closer. Let's be practical about this. Grandpa's car is worth almost $500,000. Split 4 ways, that's over $100,000 each. That's not what Grandpa wanted. Grandpa's dead, Tyler snaps, and he played games with us right until the end. You think he really cared about authentic restoration? He just wanted to control us from the grave. I pull out Grandpa's journal and place it on the table. He cared enough to document every original part in this car for 40 years. Every modification, every repair. Marcus picks up the journal, flipping through it with surprising gentleness. You know what this is worth to collectors? We could sell this separately. You're missing the point. No, you are. Amber cuts in. This is business. We'll split the profits evenly. You get the same as us. No questions asked. And if I refuse, her smile disappears. I had lunch with Jim Murphy yesterday. Did you know Murphy's Auto Repair is behind on their property taxes? One call to the right people, and they could face an audit. How long before Jim has to cut staff? The threat hangs in the air. My job, the only stable thing in my life, dangled as leverage. Marcus is already talking to the lawyer about adjusting the inheritance terms, Tyler adds. We have documentation showing you've interfered with our restorations. That's a lie. Doesn't matter. It'll take months to sort out in court. By then, we'll have sold the car and moved on. I stand up, gathering my things. You're making a mistake. No, Marcus says, suddenly serious. You are. This is happening with or without you. The only question is whether you get paid or get nothing. I leave without answering, my mind racing. In the parking lot, I notice Tyler lingering by my car while Marcus and Amber head to their vehicles. Something about his movements seems off, but I'm too angry to care. That night, I call Pete Donovan, Grandpa's old racing buddy from the 70 seconds. If anyone would understand what's happening, it's him. They're what? Pete's voice crackles with indignation when I explain the situation. Vincent would be rolling in his grave. I need help, Pete. They're threatening my job, talking about changing the will terms. Come by tomorrow. There's something Vincent wanted you to have anyway. Pete's garage is a time capsule of automotive history. Racing trophies, vintage parts, and photographs covering every wall. He leads me to a small office in the back and unlocks a filing cabinet. Your grandfather knew those vultures would try something like this, he says, pulling out a manila envelope. That's why he gave me this. Inside is a key to a safety deposit box and an authorization letter. What's in it? Everything. The complete restoration, specifications, authentication documents for every original part, photos of the car throughout its life. Vincent documented everything meticulously. Why didn't he just put this in his will? Pete smiles sadly. sadly, because he wanted to see who would do the right thing without being forced. He believed in you, kid. The bank manager examines the authorization letter carefully before leading me to the vault. The safety deposit box contains exactly what Pete described, a comprehensive history of Grandpa's Mustang, including certificates of authenticity for the original engine parts. When I return to my apartment that evening, something feels wrong. The door is locked, everything looks normal, but instinct tells me someone's been inside. I check my hiding spots. Grandpa's journal and the safety deposit box contents are still secure behind the loose vent panel in my bedroom. The next morning, I drive to Grandpa's house to check on the original engine parts hidden in the basement. As I approach, I spot an unfamiliar car parked across the street. A man in a security uniform watches me from the driver's seat. When I pull into the driveway, he gets out and approaches. "Property's closed to visitors," he says, hand resting casually near his holster. "This is my grandfather's house. I have instructions from the executor's representatives. No entry without authorization. Marcus has hired security to keep me out." I retreat to my car, pretending to leave, but park a few blocks away and watch the house. The guard changes at 8 p.m., and there's a 15-minute window when the property is unwatched. Under cover of darkness, I circle around through the neighbors' yards and approach from the back. The basement window I used to sneak through as a teenager is still there, hidden behind overgrown bushes. It's a tight squeeze, but I manage to slip inside. Working by flashlight, I locate the trapdoor beneath the workbench and retrieve the original carburetor and distributor. These are the heart of the engine, impossible to replicate convincingly. As I'm carefully wrapping them in shop towels, I hear footsteps overhead. Someone's in the house. I freeze, listening as the footsteps move toward the basement door. The knob turns, and light spills down the stairs. "I know you're down there," Marcus's voice calls out. "Security cameras caught you coming through the window." I hadn't noticed cameras. Stupid mistake. "Come on up," he continues, sounding almost amused. "Let's talk about what you're stealing." I tuck the parts into my backpack and slowly climb the stairs. Marcus stands alone in the kitchen, looking surprisingly calm for someone catching a thief. "Those are original parts," I say, nodding toward my backpack. "They belong with the car. The car that will be mine in 2 weeks," he replies. "So technically, you're stealing from me. You're not restoring it. You're faking it to sell it." He shrugs. Semantics. "The real question is what happens now?" His eyes narrow. "Did you find anything interesting on your car yesterday?" Tyler's quite good with technology. "The tracking device. That's what Tyler was doing in the parking lot." "You've been following me." "Insurance. We needed to know what you were up to." He gestures toward my backpack. "Like visiting Pete Donovan and the bank today." "What did Vincent give him?" I say nothing, calculating my options. Marcus blocks the only exit unless I want to dive back through the basement window. "Here's what happens next," he says, pulling out his phone. "Either you hand over whatever you found at the bank and agree to our terms, or I call the police and report you for breaking and entering and theft. It's not theft if they're my grandfather's parts." "Prove it," he challenges. "The will hasn't been executed yet. Legally, everything here belongs to the estate." He holds up his phone. "What's it going to be?" The lawyer's office feels like a battleground. I'm the first to arrive, 20 minutes early, setting up my laptop and arranging Grandpa's journal and the contents from the safety deposit box on the conference table. Jim Murphy sits beside me, his presence both moral support and expert testimony if needed. "You ready for this?" he asks quietly. I nod, though my stomach is churning. They don't know what I have. The door opens, and Mr. Holloway, Grandpa's lawyer, enters with his assistant. He raises an eyebrow at my display, but says nothing as he arranges his own papers. 5 minutes later, my siblings arrive together, each followed by their own mechanics. Marcus looks confident, Tyler nervous, and Amber is wearing her best real estate closing outfit, power suit and pearl earrings. "I see everyone's prepared for show and tell," Mr. Holloway says dryly. "Let's begin." Vincent's will stipulated that his 1,967 Shelby GT 500 would go to whichever grandchild successfully restored it to its original condition within 30 days. That deadline is tomorrow. "I've asked you all here to present your progress." Marcus goes first, his restoration specialist presenting a glossy portfolio of before and after photos. The Mustang looks immaculate, gleaming paint, perfect chrome, engine compartments so clean you could eat off it. "As you can see," Marcus says smoothly, "we've completed a period-correct restoration using only authentic parts. We have documentation for every component." He slides a folder of certificates across the table. I flip through them, recognizing the forgeries I'd photographed in their garage. Amber presents next, her specialist talking about the painstaking process of sourcing original components. Tyler follows with technical specifications about the engine rebuild, using terms I'm sure he doesn't understand himself. When they finish, all three look at me expectantly. The room falls silent. "Your turn," Mr. Holloway prompts. I open my laptop. Before I show my progress, I'd like to address some inconsistencies in my siblings' presentations. I connect to the conference room projector and pull up the first photo. Marcus's mechanics installing a modern crate engine disguised to look vintage. "This was taken 3 days ago at Morrison's classic car restoration," I explain. "That's a 2023 fuel-injected engine being modified to appear like a 1967428 Cobra jet." I click through more photos. Amber's team artificially aging reproduction parts. Tyler's specialist creating fake documentation. "What is this?" Marcus demands, his face flushing. "Evidence," I reply. "You're not restoring Grandpa's car. You're faking it to sell it immediately afterward." Tyler stands abruptly. "He's lying. He's been sabotaging our work from the beginning." "Is that why you put a tracking device on my car?" I counter. "To monitor my sabotage?" Mr. Holloway raises his hand for silence. "These are serious allegations. Do you have proof beyond these photos?" I open Grandpa's journal. This is Vincent's complete restoration log, documenting every original part for 40 years. I turn to Jim Murphy. "Mr. Murphy has been servicing classic cars for 30 years. He can authenticate these components." Jim nods. "The parts they're using aren't original to the vehicle. They're either modern replacements or reproductions aged to appear vintage." "This is ridiculous," Amber interjects. "Our documentation proves authenticity." "Your documentation is forged," I say, pulling out the papers from the safety deposit box. "These are the actual certificates certificates of authenticity for the original engine components. Note the serial numbers. They don't match what you've installed. I turn to the mechanics standing behind my siblings. Would any of you be willing to testify under oath that the restorations you've performed are period correct using original components? The mechanics exchange uncomfortable glances. One by one, they step back, unwilling to commit perjury. Marcus's face hardens. He dismisses his team with a wave and leans across the table toward me. Let's cut the bullshit, he says quietly. I'm prepared to offer you $100,000 to withdraw your claim right now. Cash, untraceable, yours to keep regardless of who gets the car. It's not about the money, I reply. It's always about the money, Amber says, exasperated. What do you think Grandpa would want? For his car to sit in some garage? Or for his grandchildren to use that value to improve their lives? He wanted it restored properly. I insist. That's why he left it to whoever could do that. The plan was always to sell it, Amber admits, finally dropping the pretense. We had buyers lined up before Grandpa was even buried. The Japanese collector market is hot right now. We could get $500,000 easily. Mr. Holloway clears his throat. Before we continue, there's something else Vincent instructed me to share at this meeting. He opens his laptop and turns it toward us. He recorded this video 2 days before he died. Grandpa Vincent appears on screen, sitting in his garage beside the partially disassembled Mustang. He looks tired but determined, his eyes clear and focused. If you're watching this, he begins, then my grandchildren have presented their restoration work, and at least one of them has discovered what the others are planning. He smiles sadly. I'm not a fool. I know what this car is worth, and I know who among you sees only dollar signs when they look at it. He rests his hand on the Mustang's fender. This car isn't just metal and rubber. It's 40 years of my life, of Saturday mornings teaching patience and craftsmanship. Only one of you spent those mornings with me, learning why we use this gasket instead of that one, why this particular carburetor matters, why authenticity isn't just about appearance, but about respecting history. I feel tears welling up as he continues. The Shelby goes to whoever truly restores it, not whoever makes it look pretty for a quick sale. Jim Murphy has agreed to authenticate the work, and I've left documentation of every original part in my safety deposit box. He pauses, looking directly into the camera, and to those planning to cheat, I've made arrangements to ensure that won't work. The video ends, and the room falls silent. Mr. Holloway turns to a man I hadn't noticed before, sitting quietly in the corner. This is Mr. Reeves from Shelby American Authentication, he says. He's examined all 4 restoration projects. Mr. Reeves stands, adjusting his glasses. 3 of the vehicles contain significant modern components disguised as vintage parts. Only 1 restoration adheres to period-correct specifications using original components where required. He points to the photos of my work-in-progress restoration. Not as pretty as my siblings' cars yet, but authentic down to the last bolt. This is the only one that Vincent Walsh would have approved. Marcus slams his fist on the table. This is bullshit. We've spent thousands on this restoration. On a fake restoration, I correct him. Grandpa knew what you'd do. That's why he left the original parts, where only someone who knew him would find them. Mr. Holloway closes his folder with finality. Unless anyone has further evidence to present, I believe we have our answer regarding Vincent's wishes. As my siblings gather their things, fury and disappointment evident in their movements, I realize this was never about the car itself. It was Grandpa's final test, not of our mechanical skills, but of our character. The judge's gavel cracks like a gunshot in the silent courtroom. I flinch despite expecting the ruling, my fingers gripping the edge of the wooden table. Mr. Holloway sits beside me, his expression professionally neutral, but I catch the small nod he gives me. Based on the evidence presented and in accordance with the clear intentions of Vincent Walsh, as expressed in his will and video testimony, I find that the terms of inheritance have been violated by 3 of the 4 contestants. Judge Harmon announces, her voice echoing through the chamber. The 1,967 Shelby GT 500, along with the residential property and remaining financial assets, are hereby awarded to the 4th contestant, who has demonstrated good faith adherence to both the letter and spirit of the deceased's wishes. Marcus stands abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is absurd. We'll appeal immediately. You're welcome to try, Mr. Holloway responds calmly, gathering his papers. But Vincent's video testimony is quite clear, as is the expert authentication report. I sit in stunned silence as the reality washes over me. The Mustang is mine. The house is mine. Everything Grandpa Vincent worked for his entire life, he trusted me with it all. Amber storms out first, Tyler following close behind, but Marcus lingers, staring at me with a mixture of anger and something else, maybe respect. You outplayed us, he says finally. I didn't think you had it in you. I wasn't playing anything, I reply, standing to face him. I was just doing what Grandpa taught me. He studies me for a moment, then turns and walks away without another word. Outside the courthouse, Jim Murphy claps me on the shoulder. Your grandfather would be proud as hell right now. I still can't believe it. I admit, keys to Grandpa's house heavy in my pocket. There's so much work left to do on the car. Speaking of which, Jim says, his voice taking on a different tone, I've been thinking about Murphy's auto repair. Place isn't getting any younger, and neither am I. What are you saying? I'm saying I could use a partner who knows their way around classics, someone the community trusts. He looks at me meaningfully. The shop's reputation for restoration work could use a boost, especially with a Shelby expert on board. My heart races at the implication. Are you offering me a partnership? Let's call it an investment in the future, Jim says with a grin. Think about it. But first, you've got a car to finish. The next 3 weeks pass in a blur of grease, metal, and determination. With Grandpa's journal as my guide and the original parts I'd rescued, I work day and night to complete the restoration properly. Word spreads through the classic car community, and help arrives from unexpected places. Pete Donovan brings over his collection of rare Shelby tools. Vincent would want you to use these, he says, setting down the worn leather tool roll. They've restored more Cobras than most mechanics have even seen. Members of the local car club start showing up at the garage, offering expertise, parts, and sometimes just company during the long hours. One evening, 7 of them arrived together with pizza and beer, staying until midnight to help me align the body panels perfectly. Exactly. Your grandfather helped every one of us at some point, explains Dave, the club president, as we carefully lower the restored 428 Cobra jet back into the engine bay. This is us returning the favor. The day I finally turn the key and the engine roars to life, the garage erupts in cheers. The distinctive rumble of the Cobra jet echoes off the walls, a sound Grandpa Vincent had loved more than almost anything. I feel his presence in that moment, in the vibration of the steering wheel and the scent of gasoline and oil. 2 months after the court ruling, I receive an invitation to the annual Shelby American Automobile Club convention. Jim convinces me to enter the Mustang in the Best Original Restoration category. You've earned the right to show it off, he insists. Vincent would want people to see what a proper restoration looks like. The convention center is packed with Shelby enthusiasts from around the world, hundreds of cars gleaming under the bright lights. I park Grandpa's Mustang in its designated spot, nervously wiping an imaginary smudge from the Wimbledon white paint for the 100th time. As the judges make their rounds, I stand back, watching them examine every detail of the car. They check serial numbers, test mechanical components, and scrutinize the authenticity of every part. One judge spends 20 minutes just on the engine compartment, nodding appreciatively at the period-correct hoses and clamps. When they announce the winners that evening, I'm so nervous I almost miss my name being called. Best Original Restoration, 1967 Shelby GT 500, presented in honor of Vincent Walsh. The trophy feels surreal in my hands as applause fills the room. Photographers snap pictures of me standing beside the Mustang, and I can't help but think how much Grandpa would have loved this moment. As I'm loading the trophy into the car, a familiar figure approaches. Marcus looks different, less polished, more human somehow. Congratulations, he says, hands in his pockets. The car looks incredible. Thanks, I reply cautiously. He takes a deep breath. Look, I owe you an apology. What I tried to do was wrong. Grandpa Vincent knew what he was doing with that will. The admission catches me off guard. Why the change of heart? I've been thinking about what Grandpa was really testing, Marcus says, looking at the Mustang. It wasn't about who could make the car look pretty. It was about who understood what really mattered to him. We stand in silence for a moment, the weight of his words settling between us. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he continues. Just wanted you to know I get it now. As he walks away, I feel something shift. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Some bridges take time to rebuild. 6 months after winning the car, I established the Vincent Walsh Automotive Scholarship Fund using part of the savings Grandpa left me. The program helps young mechanics learn restoration skills and craftsmanship, with special emphasis on preserving automotive history. On weekends, I often take the Mustang to car shows, where I tell Grandpa's stories to anyone who'll listen. But my favorite drives are the quiet ones with Ethan's kids, my sister's children, who never got to know their great-grandfather. This is how you listen to an engine, I tell 7-year-old Lily as she sits on my lap, her small hands on the steering wheel as we cruise slowly through an empty parking lot. Feel how it talks to you? Her eyes widen as the Cobra jet rumbles beneath us. It's like it's alive! That's exactly what Grandpa Vincent used to say, I tell her, feeling the circle complete itself. A car isn't just metal and rubber, it has a soul. In those moments, with the engine singing and the next generation learning what Grandpa taught me, I know I've honored his legacy in the way that mattered most. Not by preserving a valuable object, but by passing on the love and respect for craftsmanship that he valued above all else. The Shelby isn't just a car anymore, it's the vessel that carries his lessons forward, one Saturday morning at a time.